goes live in 3 minutes. Lynn Cullen goes live in 2 minutes. Lynn Cullen live in 1 minute. Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com.
Hey, welcome to the program. Great show today. I can say that in advance because I know who the guest is, I know what the subject is, and there's no way this ain't going to be interesting as heck. A lot of movies have been made in Pittsburgh. God knows. Some have won Academy Awards. Some have... scared the bejesus out of all of us. Some have entertained us. The movie that is opening on Christmas Day that was made here, Concussion, has the potential of having the greatest impact of any movie ever made in this city. That movie is Concussion. It is based on an article that appeared in GQ magazine some years ago, written by our guest, Jeanne Marie Laskas. Hey, Jeanne.
Hi there.
How are you?
I'm terrific.
I bet you're has your life been crazy?
You know what, Lynn? It has. I'm not going to lie to you. It's gone in overdrive.
You started that, and I thought you were going to say, Lynn, it's not really been so, but no, it really has been nuts, huh?
Well, there's just a lot. It's a subject that people really are wanting to talk about right now, and I'm so glad of that, frankly.
Have you?
I feel like this is the subject that America keeps not having this conversation.
Yeah. Have you ever in your career written something that has had this kind of a impact?
I guess not.
No.
I think it's we're sort of dealing with a public health matter now.
That really is what it is.
Not
Yes.
many of those come around for us, just all of us, to even think through together as a culture, you know?
When did you write this article?
That was 2009.
2009. When did it have an immediate impact when it was first published?
You know what it did? It's funny the way this keeps playing out in the media. It did. It got a pretty loud response, and shortly after it, congressional hearings happened. Very shortly after it, and I have since watched those hearings again, and you can hear like Maxine Waters and a bunch of other people quoting that story.
But then nothing happened.
Right, and that's been the story of this story of concussions and traumatic brain injury, especially in athletes, since since like 1984. It's something that we keep talking about and then we don't talk about.
Do you think this time's different?
Yeah, I do.
You think something actually is going to change?
I think now that it's a movie that's sort of relatable and delivered in a way that many people can see, I think you're changed after you watch that movie.
Can we drop back? First of all, wait, hang on. You've got a book coming out.
Yes.
That is, I guess, is more than obviously the article that prompted all of this, because that was 2009 and stuff's happened since. So
quite expanded. Also, the main character I wrote about, Dr. Bennett Omalu, it's really his story. And I went to, he's Nigerian. He's from Nigeria. So I went home with him to Nigeria to meet his family. I went to his father's funeral with him. Got to really understand kind of where he literally came from, and how he managed to be in the situation he was in when he figured this all out.
Do you think?
Great story.
So the book is actually, you mean the story gets better?
Yes.
Wow.
His story is incredible. It's such a great immigrant story, and it's such an American story. So the book really expands a lot on that, but in addition, gives the basic sort of play-by-play of his discovery, which is what the movie does.
This must, for him, have been such a crazed, wild ride. I can't even begin to imagine.
It is unbelievable. It really is.
I mean, you got to figure. It starts in the sterile confines of the county morgue where he's just doing what he does, right?
Yeah, he just...
cutting into bodies and brains.
That was his job. Mind you, he wasn't just any old pathologist. He was a forensic neuropathologist with about 7 advanced degrees. Brilliant guy.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And had really taken an interest in the brain, and was doing his, I guess, fellowship or residency, however that works, at the University of Pittsburgh in neuropathology. So the brain was just his thing, and he was really good at it, understanding it. So when he got the body of Mike Webster, rolled in on a Saturday for him to do an autopsy on, first of all, he didn't have any idea who Mike Webster was.
So he didn't know this is a football player?
No. He only found that out because on the news people were going on and on about Webster and about how he had, descended into such dementia late in his life.
It was such a sad story. God.
Really sad. He was only 50 years old when he died of a heart attack. But the previous, 20 years maybe? 10 years? I don't know.
For those who don't know, let me just say, I mean, was a Hall of Fame center for the Steelers. I knew him when he was a player a little bit. He was the nicest human being. It just when I later heard that all these things were happening where he was essentially homeless and all of this stuff, and I couldn't bear it. But so
Sad.
this
He's living out of his truck.
yeah, right.
Using super glue on his teeth to put him back in. He was using a taser on his to put himself to sleep.
Oh,
He's really lost his mind.
and finally he dies of a heart attack.
Yeah, and when Bennett gets this body in, basically, okay, here's a 50-year-old male died of a heart attack. Pretty straightforward autopsy. Verify the heart attack, essentially, which he did. But so there was really kind of no reason to go any further.
And 99% of pathologists doing this autopsy would not have.
No, it wasn't. It just wasn't called for.
No.
But he kept, first of all, he's learning while he's there at the morgue. Like, he's saying things like, "What's a stealer?"
Are you kidding?
And what's a center? Yeah, I mean, he barely even knew American football. So, as they're talking about it, he's thinking, well, okay, but why did a 50-year-old man go this crazy? Like, what was wrong with him? And so he started he said, I want to look at his brain. He was interested in brains anyway.
Well, this is a true scientist. I mean, he's got questions.
Yes.
Yeah.
And truthfully, when he opened up the skull and took out the brain, what he expected was it to look like a boxer brain, or an Alzheimer's brain.
Mm-hmm.
Both of those brains, to the naked eye, you can tell something like they're shriveled, bruised, beat up.
Mm-hmm.
But it looked perfectly normal. So he was like, well, that's really weird. And that made him even more curious. And so he said, you know what, I want to study this further. Now, no one would do that.
No
one. I mean, really.
Right.
In fact, they wouldn't pay for it.
And in fact, it was beyond the protocol and all of this stuff.
Right, so he took the brain home.
Didn't he go to Cyril first and say, can I take the brain home?
Yes, and Cyril said okay, which is another odd. I mean, all of these things had to happen. I mean, most bosses would not say okay to something like that.
Okay, I should say Cyril Wecht, who was the coroner at the time and is a well-known person here in Pittsburgh.
Yes, and who was well-known for making headlines and loving headlines.
Oh, gosh, yes.
So to him, it was like, oh, a potential headline. Sure, go ahead. But he didn't. I don't think he gave it much more thought than that. And
Right.
Bennett didn't make a big deal out of it. It wasn't a particularly big deal at the time. He was just really curious. So he paid for all these tests himself. Did all this sophisticated staining and looking under his microscope in his apartment in Penn Hills.
Huh.
And that's when he sees this crazy stuff.
Wow. And then the rest of the story unfolds. And, this is, we're seeing the trailers now for the movie. And there's one little piece that freaked me out where did he actually get, death threats? Or was that a Hollywood thing?
I'm going to say that is Bennett's. Bennett felt threatened. So what actually happened in real time, I do not know.
Okay, so he felt threatened by whom?
He didn't know. I mean, you have to understand, the NFL really came after him in print.
Okay, so he published something. He published, hey, here's what I found.
Right.
And that's how the NFL got his name and number.
Well, sure. He
Yeah.
published it in the journal Neurosurgery, which is a peer-reviewed journal.
Okay.
And that was in 2005. And shortly after that, the NFL wrote demanding a retraction, saying, you don't know what you're talking about. It's not true. You have to take that paper back. Basically calling him a fraud.
And they went out of their way to really destroy his reputation.
Yes. And to refute that the NFL's paid scientists. They paid their scientists. They formed a committee called the Mild Traumatic Brain Injury Committee to do science.
The Mild Traumatic Injury Committee?
The Mild Traumatic Brain Injury, MTBI.
Uh-huh.
That is a phrase used in the medical literature to discuss concussion.
Okay.
But it makes it sound a lot better.
Yeah, it definitely minimizes it.
So they had this committee, 14 guys on it, I think. No, I don't know how many guys. I take that back. I forget how many. But it's a substantial committee of NFL doctors doing experiments and publishing in that same journal over and over and over again, basically concluding that concussions are no big deal, especially not for NFL players. That no big deal.
Wow.
Over and over and over again.
Wow.
And meantime, there were unpaid scientists like Bennett. He wasn't the only one, with a totally different narrative. And they'd been going at it. And when Bennett figured this whole thing out, he really thought he was helping. He was the first person to look at an NFL brain. The first person to do an autopsy one. And when he found what he found, he's like, oh, well, this will help.
Aw.
And
so there was an innocence in
oh my gosh, yeah.
in this brilliant man.
Completely. He had no agenda. He had no agenda going into this.
How painful it must have been for him to try to take in the bizarre events that began to unfold after he thought he had done this helpful thing.
And one of the things to put it in context, too, and this is a lot of what I write about in the book, he came to America. America was the dream. America was where you got to be your best self.
Yeah.
And that's what he came here to be. And he thought in America, people celebrate other people's best selves, that's just the way it worked. And, you have to hear the intensity of that belief to really get it.
Oh, it just, you know what? I mean, so he's a sadder but wiser man now.
My goodness. Well, he's disillusioned.
He is.
And became so.
Yeah.
He couldn't understand it. He couldn't understand why, if you do, it was so, for him, in his mind, so straightforward. You come to America, you study, you get degrees, you do your best work, and, people take it seriously. You didn't understand the rest of it.
So at what point do you think, because he's brilliant, at what point does he understand that his discovery, his information, was endangering the most lucrative entertainment complex, probably, certainly in this country, maybe the world, and when you scare or in any way appear to be attacking this entity, they will come back at you. Was this his? I mean, the America he thought of was the mythological America that, in some respects, is there.
Sure.
But the America he encountered once he made his helpful discovery was the capitalist America.
Yes, and the $10 billion entertainment behemoth that he ended up going up against.
Yeah. Boy.
He started understanding that. I mean, I think it was a gradual, the first, when it was first, the retraction was demanded, was the first, wave of it. It was like, what? And then it just got worse. And here's the thing, too. Right when he got the demand for the retraction, that was, again, 2005, at that time that he got it, he already had a second brain, that of Terry Long.
Another Steeler.
Where he found the same disease.
Wow.
So he was writing it, part two.
So the scientific journal stayed with him?
Yes.
They stuck with him. He refused to retract. But
right. And then he published this part. Here's my second brain now.
Uh-huh.
Here's the guy that fit almost the exact same profile, and now he has it too. And then he got a third one. That was Andre Waters, of the Eagles. Then a fourth one, Justin Strelzik, also of the Steelers.
Oh, for God's sake.
And he had killed himself.
Yes, I remember. Wow. And but it wasn't just the NFL that came. I mean, I'm thinking of the lessons that Bennett Omalu learned about America. Mm-hmm. Wow. Mm-hmm. And you do say he is a disillusioned man.
Yeah, but he's not. You know, you'll see, and if you ever can, you should get him on your show. He's not a bitter guy at all.
No.
He's a wiser guy.
Yeah.
He's
sad.
Amazed.
Yeah. Wow.
But I really, honestly, in the book, I really write about. I mean, this guy was so sheltered in Nigeria, never let out of the compound walls.
What do you mean by
He had survived the Nigerian Civil War. He was born in the Civil War.
When you say Jeanne, when you say compound, what?
Well, like their house was like many houses in the village where he's from, surrounded by tall concrete walls with barbed wire on top.
Good heavens!
And so you stay inside your barbed wire concrete walls. Well, and honestly, he had never walked out on the street alone until he was 13 years old. He was terrified.
How? Well, he obviously was from a wealthier family then. No?
Yes. Yes. Especially in comparison.
Yes.
But he was from a family. His father was a civil servant, engineer, and there were 7 kids. And I'm telling you, each one was more educated than the next. Like, I mean, these people are incredible, and they are a force. They are a wall around each other, protecting each other from the rest of the world. It's just amazing.
So you're really
especially the women.
Okay.
Oh my God, you love these women.
You're blown away by the family.
I was, the sisters especially.
But he's the one. Was he the first to venture out literally and cross the ocean and come? No.
No. The others had. In fact, he was the second to the youngest, and he was the protected, like, angel child that was presumed couldn't handle the real world. So he was pampered beyond belief.
Oh God!
And then, came out sort of unprepared for the real world at all.
Wow. What a story!
His journey into reality.
His story.
So
this.
dark.
What a. My gosh. I mean, for you, what a gold mine.
Well, wait. I know. It's an incredible story, an incredible character. And he went to medical school when he was 16. That's all he ever did was school.
And he went to medical school in Nigeria?
Yeah, when he was 16.
Jeez. You're saying that's the only school he ever went to is medical school?
Well, he went to regular... He, zoomed through. He started school at 3 and just zoomed through. So by the time he was 16, he was ready for medical school. By the time he was 20 or 21, he'd already done medical school.
Uh-huh. And then he starts piling up these advanced degrees.
Yeah, and then he becomes really disillusioned with Nigeria and the corruption of that society. Which,
oh, God.
He's like, I have to get out of here. I can't live here.
He has to go to the city on the hill.
Yeah.
He has to go to the great U.S. of A.
Yes.
To escape corruption.
And it really was, he just couldn't take it anymore.
Oh, gosh.
He couldn't take that in order to have your lights work, you had to constantly pay off, somebody.
Wow.
Who was paying off somebody else, who was paying off, all that stuff. He thought he would go to America where nothing like that happened.
Oh, there's such a sadness to this.
Yeah, so he plops down in Seattle. He just comes with whatever the first fellowship he can get. It doesn't even matter what it's in. Plops down in Seattle, and he had never, I write about this, he did not understand racism.
Listen, we're talking about a brilliant man. What do you mean he didn't understand racism?
You got to read in the book. he and I talked so much about this. He didn't. First of all, he didn't have any racism where he came from.
Well, yes.
He said, "Look, we had." I mean, he said, "No, we didn't. We didn't. You had who was in your family and who was related to you, and it was divided in a really different way.
Yes.
Certainly not divided by race.
No, but by maybe clans and tribes and families.
Yeah, but that's different from racism. That's different from. I mean, well, he will in his experience. I mean, how can I say?
So how did he first experience racism? And
in Seattle,
yeah, I guess.
when people responded to him in ways that they didn't seem to be responding to everybody else.
Oh.
Honestly, his is growing this slow, eye-opening, and then he makes friends there who are from Nigeria, for other students who had been there a little while, and like he said, I would sit down with them and they would explain to me. They explained it to me. I'm like, what? I'm like, Bennett, didn't you read books?
Yeah, really? Wow. So that was his first sort of kick in the teeth.
Yeah.
But that's still. I mean, by the time he's still an innocent when he's here in Pittsburgh. No?
Yeah. Well, everything is new to him when he gets to America. Everything.
This is all. There's something so odd about the fact that he's such a brilliant man, and yet this innocent. And
but it's kind of like when anyone comes from any other culture into a new one, you notice stuff that people in the culture no longer notice anymore.
Well, that's true.
So he's kind of uniquely positioned.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody knew Mike Webster was crazy. Everybody knew bashing your head couldn't be a good thing. So it takes this guy from Nigeria who doesn't know football, who doesn't know this culture and what football means, to say, wait a second, let's look at that brain.
So
it's like
the other things I'm trying to think again. I mean, not only so the NFL comes at him almost immediately after he does the study. But then there's other, horrible lessons he has to learn. I mean, not just the NFL. I mean, his work, in some respects, was sort of stolen from him, wasn't it? When it became a lucrative enterprise?
Well, what happened was he starts, hooking up with people who...
These are the people in West Virginia?
Oh, no. Well,
No.
So let me back up. So he's kind of rescued by Dr. Julian Bales at West Virginia University, who's a neurosurgeon, who's the first person to reach out to him and say, you know what, I believe you. I don't think you're a quack. And Bales had been a Steeler team doctor. I mean, Bales was...
Oh, wow.
He was, he knew football.
Yeah.
He knew Mike Webster.
Yeah.
Like he literally knew Mike Webster. Alec Baldwin plays Bales in the movie. So that's a good relationship because Bales is able to kind of be his front man even, and represent his work. And Bennett would say to him, they'll listen to you. You're one of them.
Mm-hmm.
They're not listening to me, but they'll listen to you. So they partner up, and that's a really good thing. And they also partner up with an attorney, Bob Fitzsimmons, who's still in West Virginia, who was Mike Webster's attorney. So the three of them form a group that's going to sort of try and advance the science. And this is a new field. They're gonna work on this together. And they're joined by a fourth guy named Chris Nowinski.
Oh, yeah.
Who came from Boston and who was not a scientist or anything like that. He had played football in college, and he became a professional wrestler in World Wildlife Wrestling, or what's it called?
World Wildlife. The
WWE.
WWE. It's now the WWE. Right.
Yeah.
World Wrestling Entertainment, or whatever the hell it is now. So he was a pro in that.
Pro.
Yeah, okay.
He wrestled by the name Chris Harvard.
Okay. So this is the guy who I see in my head. I'm remembering him as stealing it all, but that's not really the way that's not correct.
I don't want to take that kind of claim on it because I would say probably it felt like that in the end to Bennett and to the group, but you can't steal anything,
It's information. It's
information,
knowledge.
and what happened is that those four formed an organization and ended up splitting apart because the motivations were really different. I think that...
Well, what was Nowitzki's motivation?
I think he was building a career and wanted to be... I feel like I don't even fault just him. I feel like everyone wants to own this subject.
Yeah.
I think it's so explosive and so... I don't know. People want to own it. And so...
Well, the NFL did own it. It has now lost, to a large extent, ownership, don't you think?
Yes, I do. I think now, especially.
And that's the great thing that has happened. But, it just seems that, when stuff started happening, when more stuff started coming out into the public, nobody went to Bennett Omalu.
No.
To talk about it or explain it. He just disappeared.
Fell off the map
right.
Entirely.
Totally.
And that largely was Chris Nowinski's work. Because
Right.
Chris Nowinski broke off and formed a new organization. Took the organization and hooked up with different doctors.
In Boston.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you see in the media, if you follow these stories in the New York Times, where most of the coverage was, Bennett, his name drops off entirely.
His name, he disappears. And all of a sudden, it's this Nowitzki and everybody in Boston that are the ones who are...
The champions of it.
The champions. Yeah.
And then Bennett just falls off. And by the time I entered the subject in 2009, of course, I knew none of this. I just came to write about it, and I was looking at the scientific journals at this guy, Bennett Omalu, his name. I'm like, whatever happened to that guy? Why is he never mentioned?
Is that why? Because I wanted to ask you, how did this come to your... So you're looking at this. Did GQ say this is a great subject? Why don't you look into it? And then you realized Bennett Omalu was the linchpin here, was the base?
But here's how it works. My editor says to me, let's do a football brain injury story. Been in the news a lot. And I'm like, yeah, it's been in the news a lot. Why what do we have to add to the conversation? It had been reported a lot. And he was like, yeah, we'll just look into it. And so I'm kind of not going to do it, but I'm researching just to kind of make sure I know that I'm not going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I start looking. It's a fascinating subject, and these fascinating tragic stories of people who had committed suicide by then. But I started backtracking to see where it all started. And I found that original journal article.
Well, how bizarre is it that when you backtrack, you find that it started in your backyard?
I know. I'm like, what? It's in Pittsburgh. Yeah.
Wow.
And then there's this name, and I'm like, how come this guy who wrote the first article is not mentioned in any of this media or by any of these other scientists or by the NFL, by anybody? How could he have just disappeared? That is when I got interested with that question. And then, of course, when I found him, it just opened up this can of worms.
Was he more than willing to talk to you?
Yes.
And where was he when you found him? Was he in California already?
He was already in Lodi, California. He was working as the coroner there.
So, wow.
And actually, he was still doing brains in his garage. He had a little lab in his garage.
But see, now the brains, when football players die, their brains go to Boston, don't they?
Well, Boston did honestly, you have to give them the credit for the science that they are doing. Really, you do. They started a brain bank.
So
they got people to sign their brains away, basically.
Yeah.
They go around and get people to sign off and say they will donate their brains.
Jeez.
It's kind of.
So they have, I keep wanting to jump on them, but they have carried on and are doing great work in this area.
Yeah, when you get into this subject, you start rooting for one side or the other, inevitably, I think.
Yeah.
And I'm certainly
I
root for Bennett, of course.
Yeah.
But it's important, I think, to take a step back and say there are no sides. This is science that's advancing, and it should be spread out among many universities,
Uh-huh. So I don't suppose the Steelers have sent you any complimentary tickets or anything, have they?
I haven't talked to them. I'm happy to. And I really need to make this really clear. I am not trying to end football. I love football. I love the Steelers. I love the game. This is not the war on football. In fact, it's the reverse. This is, hey, America, what are we watching here? And what has the NFL been telling us that we've been watching? Because, frankly, I feel duped.
Well, but Jeanne, how can you, if you answer those questions, and since I read your article, I find it much more difficult to watch a football game. I'm much more aware of the players being carted off the field left and right, and I'm thinking I'm complicit.
Yes, definitely complicit. Now we are, because now we know.
Yeah, but how? Okay.
I'll make the analogy here. It's really like the tobacco industry.
Yeah.
And where the tobacco industry was fighting and fighting and fighting to sort of
say there's nothing wrong here, there's
right.
nothing wrong.
And then that's who we were. Those were the leaders. And the same, for some reason, we let the NFL be the leader of this discussion too.
Right.
There's nothing wrong here. There's nothing wrong here. There's nothing wrong here.
Move along.
Well, now, wait a second. Yes, there is. So, number one, I'm duped. So I'm mad at the NFL. I'm not mad at football. I'm just. It's like that big behemoth $10 billion industry. I don't know why we've been so sort of dazzled by them and thinking and trusting of them.
Well, they're a brilliant outfit. They've had us in the palm of their hands.
Definitely. But I can't blame the players, and I can't even blame the game. In fact, if anything, the players and we, the fans, are on the same side here.
Well, you must have been blown away when, a few weeks ago, Roethlisberger took himself out of a game?
That was huge.
And he said, I'm standing on the sideline, and for the first time in my life, I'm not thinking about, I got to get back in the game. I'm thinking about my family, my children, what I will be in 10, 15 years.
I think that was huge. It was the first time we ever saw anything like that, and it was even huger for him taking a sort of a leadership role there.
I know. I was blown away.
For the people, the players beneath him.
Right.
Yeah, you can. This is the right thing to do.
Because he said no one will ever say that I don't, that I'm a wimp who won't go back in injured. He's known for playing injured.
I think moments like that, you see the culture shift beginning.
Right. But here's the thing. Reading your article, I got to learn about the brain. Mm-hmm. And I don't see, since it is floating around in there in the skull, that what helmet, what anything can protect it from being knocked. It's still going to go bang, bang, bang. There's nothing you can do.
The helmet thing has been a waste of time. And here's the great line. Someone said this, and I wish I knew who. I heard it, and I don't know who said it. Helmets are the filtered cigarettes of this century.
That is perfect. There it is. That is perfect.
It's like, really?
You'll be fine. Just put this on. You'll be fine. Just have a filter on that cigarette.
Right. So
Bull.
that's been that. Now we understand that. And so, yeah, you can put a helmet on that's a foot thick. The physics of the situation are
The same.
your brain is going to hit your skull.
Right.
It's going to slosh into it.
So I don't see how football survives.
So that's what the next question is. How does football survive, and what do we do about it? But the first thing is we don't deny. We stop pretending that it's not happening.
Well, I got to tell you, I know a lot of people who are always sort of on the progressive side of things and are always caring about, injury in human beings and, how do we right this wrong. But they're also diehard Steeler fans.
Yep.
And I've said to some of them, don't you feel like there's blood on your hands when you're party watching? And you know what? I can tell they look at me like they want me to shut up.
Exactly. Can't take it.
Go. What are you trying to take from me? How are you going to get around that?
I'm going to show them the movie and have them read the book. I'm not trying to take anything from you. I'm just saying, wake up and look at this. And then we'll talk about what we're going to do. I think we've got to support the independent scientists who can help us figure this out and just cure this damn thing. We don't know why some people get it and some people don't.
Well,
We don't know the influence of genetics or, maybe there's a pill you can pop so this protein doesn't accumulate in your brain. Then we can have football again. But we're gonna have to do that. Maybe we have our kids play flag football.
yeah, maybe we definitely do that. Can I read the last two paragraphs of something that Bennett Omalu wrote in the New York Times?
Oh boy, yeah.
Our children are minors who have not reached the age of consent. It is our moral duty as a society to protect the most vulnerable. The human brain becomes fully developed at about 18 to 25 years old. We should at least wait for our children to grow up, be provided with the information and education on the risk of this play, and let them make their own decisions. No adult, not a parent or a coach, should be allowed to make this potential life-altering decision for a child. We have a legal age for drinking alcohol, for joining the military, for voting, for smoking, for driving, for consenting to have sex. We must have the same when it comes to protecting the organ that defines who we are as human beings.
That's a whopper, isn't it?
That's the sadder but wiser Bennett Omalu finally obviously getting how you communicate in this
I know, isn't that beautiful?
crazy US of A.
He's
Yeah?
getting so much criticism for this,
For what?
for that op-ed.
He's been?
He has been, yeah.
Criticism from who?
Well, here's the way I'm looking at it. Oh, scientists. Here's really the sad thing.
I can't
Julian Bales. Remember I mentioned him as the guy who...
Yeah, the West Virginia guy who had been the Steeler doctor who first sort of helped them sort of navigate this insanity.
Yeah, and who continued to do amazing work, and he still does. He's now in Chicago. You just Google him. He's saying that Bennett has gone way too far, and that this is ridiculous. We don't know enough yet to make these kinds of claims. He really took him on publicly.
Oh, my God. Do you think the NFL got to Bales?
No, I think that, for one, Bales is the lead medical examiner of Pop Warner. So
he is?
that's a conflict. But also, he believes this. I mean, here's what people say. This is what science says. This is what the NFL's been saying. We don't know enough yet. We don't know enough yet. We need to do the science. That's what everyone's been saying. But my feeling is we've been saying that since 1982 or something.
That's just a way to put things, keep things the same.
We don't know enough yet, so let's not panic. And what I like what Bennett is doing is Bennett is saying he's saying what somebody needed to say, which is putting the brakes on. Like, what if we just said this? What if I just said this? Don't let kids play. It's a really important statement to push against, at least.
I thought this column was very, it wasn't, I was surprised it wasn't even like stronger. He simply asked questions. Don't you think? Blah, blah, blah. And you're telling me this poor guy is continuing to get jumped on?
Oh, yeah.
Even now?
Oh, yeah. But he doesn't mind it. I mean, he gets
Not
it.
anymore. He gets it now.
And he doesn't flinch. I mean, he believes what he believes.
Do you feel like he feels like a crusader?
No, I think he feels that it's important for him to speak up.
Mm-hmm.
I think he has like a duty. I think he feels like a duty to speak up. Especially now that with the movie coming out, he's kind of becoming almost a public. Well, he is. He's a public figure. So he's got to make a statement that he believes in and stand behind it.
He's just saying there should be a legal age limit for high impact contact, sports. That's what he's arguing for, just like there is for all those other products. But that would endanger certainly Pop Warner football unless it became flag football.
Right. And you'll hear a lot of chatter about, which I agree with, how great football is on so many levels for
kids.
Team cooperation and all that it does for kids who have nothing else. And I believe all that is true, but really we have to get a little bit more creative. There's lots of games you can play. It's a game.
Right. Are you still able to watch?
No, it's really hard for me.
Me too. Although I do, you know what? It's like, I don't watch, and then I find myself getting sucked in if my kid has it on but there seem to be more injuries than ever, Jeanne.
Yeah.
I've never seen so many bodies being taken off the field, and
Has
we're
that
all...
been true this season? Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, I haven't watched much, but when I even see it in the news, it's like, oh, another body. Ooh, another body.
They're just... it's so not unusual.
Right.
So
now, let me say this too. I want to say this about what Bennett's doing. Did I tell you about the foundation?
No.
Okay, this is really great. So coming out of this movie and the book and all the hoopla around this subject, Ridley Scott, who's the producer of the movie, Janina Scott, who is his wife but is the driving producer of the movie, and the director of the movie, Peter Landesman, me and some others, we decided we're going to start a foundation so that when you see this movie and read this book and get worked up like you and I do, you can turn to and maybe help.
You can give some...
What I'm going to do is support the science, also support, ultimately, my dream is that we have care centers for these guys so that they don't kill themselves. There's nobody taking care of these guys. But also, it extends then to military. They're finding us in military, in a lot of soldiers.
Yeah.
There's so many implications of this. Anyway, so we started this foundation called the Bennett Omalu Foundation, and we have you're going to learn about this at the premiere. The University of Pittsburgh is affiliating with this foundation, which is great because the University of Pittsburgh is like the home of this CTE. That's where it all happened.
That's where this was ground zero, right?
Is where it all happened, and they're back now, and behind this foundation, and
that's great.
Their big old brain institute there, they have, just incredible bench of researchers. So I feel like we're going to see things happen.
Good. I don't know if you read the, what is that called? The style section of the New York Times on Sundays.
Sure.
With all the weddings.
Oh, I mean, I see it. Uh-huh.
Yeah, but this last Sunday, there was a wedding of two very happy-looking, maybe 40-something people, African-American, and their love story, which they got a big write-up about, is really sort of very... he was a boxing champion.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. And anyway, she married him even though he's already showing symptoms. And they're so in love. And I'm thinking, but wow, you're marrying a guy who might become violent in next year, who's not going to, and it just, you read their love story, and it breaks your heart.
That's rough.
I mean, this destroys families.
I just went to a funeral a couple weeks ago of Fred McNeil.
Yes.
Who I wrote about, and he's in the book too, who was a Vikings.
You wrote about him.
Yeah, do you remember that story? I wrote about him for GQ shortly after I wrote about Bennett. I don't know if I ever showed you that one. Because
I mean, you did a lot of football stuff. I remember, but...
I wanted to write about what it was like for the families to have this.
Oh, no, I didn't see it.
Yeah, so Fred... Okay, so here you got this linebacker from the Vikings.
Yeah.
Who's so not built of football culture. I mean, he's this, like, erudite man who finishes law school while he's with the Vikings. That's how smart he was, studying on the plane. Starts his law practice as a partner in a big firm when he retires. I mean, really successful career. And but all of a sudden, he starts forgetting things, and it goes to hell, gets fired, then gets fired again, and then gets fired again. His wife, Tia, had no idea what was going on. She just thought he was lazy and forgetful. No, that was the thing. There's so little awareness about this disease. So Tia had no idea what was going on. She ends up moving home to Los Angeles to her mother and dragging Fred with her. He can't work, and she's trying to take him to doctors, but there's nothing wrong with him. And by the time I showed up to write about him, here's what had happened. Here's how Tia learned about this disease. She started Googling brains and things like this, and she found my story in GQ magazine.
Yeah.
She read about Bennett Omalu, and she called him. She found his phone number and called him. Wow. And Bennett picked up the phone, and she described what was going on for Fred, and Bennett said, well, I can't diagnose people, but it sounds exactly like this, what I've been seeing. So that's how little awareness there is.
And you're saying that you just went to his funeral.
And I just went to his funeral. He died a couple weeks ago. I became friendly with Tia over the years and watched, I mean, her two sons, they took care of Fred in the end. He still believed when I got there, he still believed he was an attorney. He had this little office, kind of, that he would toddle off to every day, and just this legal pad, and he would just scribble on a legal pad all day.
Oh, my God.
And then walk home. It was hard to, that whole family was shattered.
And how many? I mean, one can't even imagine all the football players who long gone before this.
And who are like Tia, out there having no idea what's going on.
Still?
I mean, there's so many stories. Marianne Easterling, her husband Ray Easterling of the Falcons. This is just a couple years ago. She too, same thing. No idea what's going on. That's what's driving me crazy. How are these NFL families not know this?
Okay, so this is the gift you've done, because this movie.
Yeah, now they're going to know. Now they're going to know what's wrong. And you'll see one of the lines in the movie is so beautiful. Bennett stands up and tells the families to forgive them.
Yeah.
They're not themselves anymore.
You know, I'm looking at something that came in while we're talking. And this shows how big this thing is getting, but also how it could get out of control, and you don't know who's out there giving information. I have this that came to me. The Entertainment Industry Council is pleased to provide our new concussion TV portal. as an information resource for the entertainment industry's writers, producers, directors, and news health reporters and journalists. This service is designed to encourage accurate storytelling and reporting on concussions as a public health concern, blah, blah, blah. And then I'm looking at who they're making available to people like me. You know who the first person up is? Allie Wallace, Miss Oregon, 2015.
What?
Next is Craig McEwen, former NFL Washington Redskins and San Diego Chargers. Nisha Moni, Director, Global Healing Initiative. What is this?
I'm telling you, it's it's an industry.
Yeah, but see, there's going to be a lot of. I mean, do you think maybe this? I looked at it when I first saw it, and I thought maybe the NFL is behind this, and they're going to be peddling experts out there and misleading people. I mean,
yeah.
How do you keep control of this? You can't.
And there's so many people who want in on it. There's so many quack doctors coming up with concoctions.
Oh dear.
That they're peddling. Tia lived all through that. Peddling snake oil to help you.
Wow.
Big industry starting up. I'm telling you, everyone wants to own this thing. It's really something to watch. It's like there's a lot of vulture activity.
Yeah, well, again, welcome to America and to capitalism. Okay, so you've seen the movie. Usually people who write a story or a book and then it's made into a movie, it seems to me usually they're sort of like, ugh, not too happy. Obviously, I mean, this is not exactly like what you... I mean, are you generally happy with it? Jeanne? Did we lose her? Jeanne? Are we generally happy with it? Yeah, there you are?
I'm here.
Okay, we lost you for a second.
Sorry about that.
Are you generally happy with this movie?
Yes.
And do you think it's factual enough? I mean, I know they always do a little thingamajig.
It's definitely factual enough.
Okay.
I mean, it definitely follows the beats of what happened.
And Bennett is happy with it?
Bennett's thrilled.
Aw.
And Will Smith just got a nomination for a Golden Globe.
I saw that. He got, yeah, for Best Actor, right?
Yep. And Will Smith, I did not know he was that good an actor. I didn't know what I was expecting, but he's amazing. He's really, really incredible in this movie.
Yeah, who else is in it? So who plays Cyril?
Oh, now you're going to...
Oh, I'm sorry.
Forget. Oh, Albert Brooks.
Albert Brooks.
Isn't that funny?
That's perfect. That's actually perfect.
It is.
It's
good.
Has Cyril seen the movie?
I don't think so. We invited him to the premiere and he couldn't make it.
Oh, I would think he would just die to see it.
I know.
Huh.
I mean, people really like his character. The audiences who have seen it, that a lot of people comment on. Well, they all comment on Will Smith and his performance, and many of them comment on Brooks' character.
So, who else locally are we going to see portrayed? I mean, maybe not. Who else?
I don't know that these will be household names, but let's see. Oh, well, you probably heard of Dr. Joe Maroon.
Are you kidding?
Yeah, he's got a pretty...
Dr. Joe Maroon is he's huge. Where is he at UPMC?
He's at UPMC, yes.
Yeah, and his specialty is what? Trying
Brains.
to think. Brains?
He's a Steeler doctor.
Okay, that's why I know him. He's a Steeler doctor. So
He's a controversial figure in the movie, I'll put it that way.
And you suspect Dr. Joe Maroon will not enjoy this movie?
I don't know because I don't know him. Yeah. But he's got a lot of scenes. So,
Do you know who plays him?
Talked about.
Can you think of who plays him?
I can't remember the guy's name.
Okay.
I'm so sorry.
That's okay. I'm not good with names anymore either. Oh my God, I can't wait What are you working on now, Jeanne? Just this? I mean, you can't be working on something else. I know you're trying to. Hey, your book is out, available?
The book is out. It just came out. It's available. It's called Concussion. It's going to be at Target and Costco and everywhere.
Oh, cool.
And in Amazon. And you are really going to like this book. You know, it just got nominated for a PEN Literary Award.
Way to go.
Yeah, it's really nice.
You know,
it's a really good story. It
you
really
know,
is.
my son, who I don't think of as a reader, said to me, I just ordered Concussion.
Oh, my God, that's so adorable.
I know.
That's really cool.
He ordered it from Amazon. So, boy, this book, you're going to, wow. All right.
I will get you a copy, Lynn, because I want to make sure you see it, because I know you know a lot about the subject now. So
I do. Well, listen, I'm so proud of you. I'm so happy for you. I hope your life calms down a little bit.
Yeah.
Or maybe you don't.
Yeah, you go through these, you know.
No, I don't know. You know.
Well, it's all...
Where things get crazy.
All for a good cause, and I'm so glad I got to talk to you.
Me too. And I hope I'll see you next week.
Oh, you will.
I will?
Yeah.
Okay, so the premiere is at next week here, but it's not in theaters really until Christmas Day. Okay. Well, I'll so look forward to it. Thank you, Jeanne.
Thanks for having me.
God bless you. And thanks
really
for
great talking to you.
Well, thanks for spending all this time with us.
My happiness, I promise you.
Okay. Love you. Thank you. Bye. Bye-bye. It's Jeanne Marie Laskas. She, by the way, teaches at the University of Pittsburgh, teaches writing. And I have had the good fortune to have her as a friend for many, too many years. So I'll tell you, I'm excited about seeing this, and I don't know what else to say. I think that's about it. Hey, guys, enjoy the summer-like weather. Yeah, jeez. And we'll pay for this down the road, I bet. But anyway, thanks for listening. And I'll see you again, Monday. And guess what? I think on Monday, we're going to have joining us future Pulitzer Prize winning cartoonist Rob Rogers. Okay? So he'll be here Monday, 10 a.m. See you then. Have a great weekend.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper, Steel City Media, and its advertisers.